4, 5.
Ladies first.
Oh, sorry.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Essential workers have been laboring. Lower the spread.
I'll pick up.
Okay. After you do that, I'll go over.
Okay.
So I'll toss it to you. Okay. Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
First time for everything.
Yep.
Although Stephen usually does get there.
Good evening. I'm Mayor Ron Nirenberg with Bexar County Judge Nelson Wolff, and tonight we're joined by our Chief of Epidemiology at San Antonio Metro Health, Rita Espinoza, and this is our COVID-19 update for the San Antonio community. I want to remind you again, Labor Day weekend is here, and this is one of the several defining moments in our fight against COVID-19. We've made tremendous progress in recent weeks, as you've heard reported here, and we need to keep up the good work wearing our masks and practice physical distancing. On this Labor Day, think of the many essential workers who have been laboring for the last many months, keeping our community safe and responding to those in need throughout this pandemic, so let's work together and not put them at any increased risk. Think of our kids, some of whom may be going back to classroom in a couple of weeks. The lesser the spread, the more likely they and their teachers can return safely to school. And most importantly, think of your friends and family. If you made it this far without getting sick, don't let your guard down now. Judge?
Yeah, thank you so much. You guys deserve an A for the work you're doing. You have an opportunity to get that up to an A+ if you'll really work with us through the Labor Day weekend. The mayor and I cut an emergency spot that was released today. Some of you may have heard it at 5 o'clock already, and that's to really be careful over this holiday. It also takes you to a link that gives you some ideas how you can reduce your risk. But we know the fundamentals: wear that mask, avoid the large gathering of your families, and stay physically distanced. You know, you miss being with the families. I certainly miss them, and I don't blame my son and my daughter-in-law, but they don't want us to be around the grandkids now till this thing gets in better shape. So just be very careful with your family and be very careful with your friends. The mayor and I issued a new executive emergency order today, and that's based on what the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the CDC's temporary halt on residential evictions. We put a little teeth into it, and so failure to comply will result in a fine not to exceed $1,000 for each violation. So we want the landlords to be alert to this new law. We want them to comply with it, and we want to let them know that if they don't, they could be subject to a $1,000 fine. I mentioned the other night what we were doing with our courthouse on terms of air circulation and trying to protect people in the courthouse. Those of you that work in an office somewhere, you might want to take some ideas back to your to the owners of the company and ask them to check out a few things. Number one, we did install those UVC lamps, and they're put right by the air that enters and the air that goes out. What it does, the UV light damages the protein and destroys the virus. So that's an important piece if you can get people to do that. You might be able to do it in your home also. We also, in the corridors or where there's a lot of people that come and go, we put in some very high density filters to capture the virus particles and reduces the possibility of airborne transmission. And the last thing that you need to look at doing, and you might want to check your own air conditioning system, it's recommended that that air changes every 4 to 6 times per hour. So you want to be able to make sure that's being done with your air conditioning system. So what we've done, we've programmed our automatic air conditioning systems to pull more fresh air into the building and do it more often. So take those ideas and share them with the folks you're working with and maybe be able to implement some in your own home.
Thank you, Judge. And now for tonight's numbers for our pandemic, we are reporting 114 new cases of COVID-19, which brings the total to 47,184 since this began in our community. Our 7-day moving average now has dropped to 157. Tonight, we are reporting 2 new deaths in our community, a Hispanic female in her 50s and a Hispanic male in his 70s. We've also now investigated and verified an additional 20 deaths that were reported by the state through the death certificate information. These occurred between July 5th and August 25th, and those now have been fully verified to have been COVID-19 related. So the total in our community is now 873. Every death, as you know, is a tragedy and a loss of life in our community, a loss of a loved one, a friend, a family member, a colleague, a neighbor. So please keep them and their families in your prayers. Lastly, in our hospitals tonight, there are 323 COVID patients, down 21 from yesterday, so our trend continues to go well there. We have 40 new admissions in the hospital since yesterday, 145 patients in the ICU, and 83 on ventilators. As far as capacity, 67% of ventilators are available, and 13% of staffed hospital beds are available. So San Antonio, we are counting on you to stop the spread of COVID-19. Please be safe this Labor Day weekend. And as always, you can subscribe to the latest COVID-19 updates by texting COSAGov to 55000. You can also go to the website anytime at covid19.sanantonio.gov, where you can find the latest on the pandemic, the health information, as well as all the relief programs that are available through the city and the county. Dr. Espinoza, myself, and the judge are available for questions.
The city is closing the parks, of course, for Labor Day, and trails will remain open. So for the folks who want to go out and enjoy those trails, what more can they do to stay safe when they go out?
Keep moving. You know, we want people to enjoy some fresh air, get some exercise, but keep moving. The whole idea behind keeping the trails open but closing down the parks is that we want people not to congregate in large groups. So I know the county is doing the same.
When it comes to the ideas of the parks being closed, you've had them closed for the majority of the major holidays here in San Antonio since the outbreak of COVID-19. Has it helped the numbers, do you guys believe, mitigate?
I believe it has. You know, again, one of the first and probably the most significant one that we experience in terms of parks and the opportunity for congregating and disease transmission was Easter weekend, where we have camping happen. We went through Easter weekend with no discernible increase in cases at all. It wasn't until the mask mandate that we had in place was stripped by the state, and we saw those holiday weekends go by with increase in cases. But again, we issued the warnings prior to the July 4th weekend, and that went much better than the previous Memorial Day. So we're hoping and we're counting on the public to do the right thing.
Judge, talking about evictions, why was it important for you to attach that fine to this order? And what do you hope it does for the community moving forward?
Well, you know, when they issued the order, we were looking at it and we wondered, well, how do you comply with it? Who's the enforcement of complying with it? There really wasn't an enforcement mechanism. And so Mayor and I decided that we ought to update our emergency orders and put an enforcement provision there. Otherwise, there would be no other way to enforce it.
And what do you hope it does for the community with this being in place now?
Well, you know, we all know that we don't want more people out on the street. We don't want more homeless people. And taking this through, I believe it was December, I think they stated it too. I thought it was a really important thing that they did. We were doing it here, and then the Texas Supreme Court shut us down, I don't know, about 2 months ago, I guess. I was pleased to see this come out, and because we still got 2 or 3 rough months to go through, so I'm thankful they're doing it, and we just decided to put a little teeth into it.
Yeah, I think it'll help give some people peace of mind. But keep in mind, the eviction moratorium is one thing. People also have to get some steady income. So while they, with the enforcement of this moratorium, may not have to worry so much about eviction, we want them now to be encouraged to get into the training and relief programs that the city and the county has put in place. A lot of the reason why people are having trouble paying the rent is because they have a loss of income. And so with the city and the county workforce programs, they can get trained for jobs that are available right now. And while they're getting trained, they're going to have steady income in the form of cash payment that would allow them to pay for grocery bills, utility bills, and rent or mortgage.
With students starting to be phased into schools again following the Labor Day holiday, the main message you have for teachers, students, parents, guardians, anyone, as the cases are starting to go down here in San Antonio?
You want to take it?
I think it's still the same, to remain vigilant, make sure that you're monitoring family members, teachers, staff, students before they go to school to make sure they don't have any signs or symptoms. If they do, the prudent thing is to keep them home and have them evaluated by a medical provider. Also put in the mechanisms at the schools. The schools have been working very hard. We've been talking with them and in communication with them almost daily to look at the environmental controls that they can put in place, making sure that the desks are seated apart, the 6 feet, making sure the masks are being used by the staff at all times, and then for those children that it's appropriate that they're also using those masks. Hand hygiene, hand washing, still, those are other mechanisms they can be putting into place to help minimize any kind of spread of the disease and the introduction of the disease into their schools.
So at this point, do you all feel comfortable with sending students back to school, phasing them in?
Well, you know, the department put out the fact that we're in the yellow zone now. We were in the red zone, and because of all the good work everybody's been doing, it's put us into the yellow zone. And so there's some pretty clear guidelines about what should be done in the yellow zone, and that's with 6 or fewer people, making sure the occupancy doesn't exceed 25%, doing the social distancing, wearing the mask. So we say you can open in this yellow zone provided you do these things, and the schools will do that. I think we can be successful. You may have a case some, but I think overall we can be very successful if they follow the guidelines of Metro Health.
Next question from Judge Velasquez of the San Antonio Report. What is your response to the letter today from the Coalition on reopening schools? The coalition disagrees with the recommendation to move forward with in-person schooling until the county is in the green zone.
Metro Health has set very strong standards, and
Yeah.
those schools, if they meet these, September the 8th can open.
Right, and don't disagree with the intent of that letter. The challenge for us is that the enforceability of the health department directive has been stripped by the state. And so we're going to continue to be vocal about what the health professionals are telling us about safe reopening of schools. And it is true, we're not in the green zone yet, which is why they're still recommending we have only small pods, 25% occupancy. We hope we're below 5% and we get into the green zone by the time a lot of these schools are opening up. But let's be very clear, the guidance from the health authority has not changed. with regard to opening of schools. And to answer the previous question about, as a father, am I comfortable? I don't think anybody is going to be comfortable until, months from now, 6 to 8 months from now, perhaps, we've proven that this works and that we can open things in a safe and smart way. So that's why the health authority's directive is there. If we get the positivity rate down to below 5%, we're in the green zone. People continue to practice the good hygiene and mask wearing and physical distancing in the schools, and we show that it can work, and we're successful, then people will start to feel comfortable. But let's be real. None of us have been through this before, and so it's okay to feel a little uncomfortable. Just follow the health directives.
Remember, the governor took that authority away from us and stated that it's up to each individual school district to decide when they're going to open. Our role was pretty well restricted to setting guidelines about how they should do it. So I think we are performing to the best we can under the existing law. Now, I know it's a tough decision. I have a grandson, Ben Wendland, who's be a senior at Alamo Heights this year, and they're still debating about whether he should really go to school or not come Monday, whether he should just continue online, which he has a right to do, I think, for the first 9 weeks of the school year. So it wouldn't surprise me to see him maybe decide to stay home and do that. But that's a debate that's occurring right now with probably every family that's got kids in school.
Going back to the parks real fast, over Memorial Day weekend, the city parks and trails were open, and that was the one major holiday weekend in San Antonio they were. But you're hoping now that we have the mask mandate and the parks and trails closed, that will limit the Labor Day congregation.
I mean, again, we had a whole myriad of factors during that time in Memorial Day, including a holiday weekend after the mask mandates were stripped, and we had great infection rates. So I think overall led to a feeling that we're good, and clearly the virus is still out there, and in general. That wasn't being taken very seriously, and so I think that's changed. It clearly has changed, and we need to make sure that people are taking this seriously as we go into the new holiday.
You got to remember now, compare what happened Memorial Day and what happened over the July 4th. And we closed the parks. We pushed real hard to have people doing social distancing, and everybody put out the alarm. And we did much, much better over July 4th than we did on Memorial. Memorial Day was really, really bad.
Thank you.